Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Jason Burress with the Burress Law, Life, and Friends podcast. And we're bringing in the heavy hitters today. Kyle Hale, Brian Mincher. Well, let's talk about cases. We've had some fun times recently. We've had some fun times. We've had 4 7-figure settlements and or offers. I say that because one of them we've turned down, and we're gonna be their huckleberry and see what we can do. But yeah, we've had some good times.
Yeah, we've had some big cases recently.
Starting to tune them up. You got one you can think of that you're?
It's probably the most fun case I've ever had, and I mean that honestly. In 15 years of practicing law, and that was Tony's case. The great thing about what we do is the fact patterns are always so much fun, and they're always a little bit different, right? You're dealing with people and not businesses. And so it's a lot of fun, but Tony got rear-ended. Not a big impact, not a huge crash, not a small one by any stretch of the means, but wasn't catastrophic.
Was this on 75?
No, it was in Richardson on one of the roads down there. I forget which one. But Tony's injuries led to an infection and a 12-day hospital stay. And so an accident kind of blossomed into much bigger than what anyone had really anticipated. Of course, the law in Texas is you're responsible for all that if it's foreseeable, and it absolutely was. The insurance company didn't understand that. So we're fighting that battle on, hey, here's why his medical is what it is. This isn't, a $5,000 case. This is a much, much bigger case.
So to reset, there's a crash. It's like a moderate crash. Mm-hmm. He ends up getting an infection.
He does.
It wasn't one of those things that was a medical malpractice deal.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
He went into his family doctor of 30-something years, 20-something years at least, and got an injection for pain medication. And the injection site ended up getting infected, getting septic. Tony spent 10, 12 days in the hospital dealing with the infection. And of course, again, as I previously stated, the law in Texas is if it's all, part and parcel of the crash, then you're responsible for it. So you're educating the adjuster or the insurance company, and at times opposing counsel. You wouldn't think you'd have to educate lawyers, but dadgummit, that's what you got to do a lot of the time.
Oh, yeah.
You're responsible for all this. And then on top of that, there was, just a lot of fun stuff that happened in the case. We sent out our original written discovery, and we send admissions, which we try and pare down the stuff that we're fighting about at trial. That's why you send that stuff. So you don't spend 3 days, 4 days dealing with issues that we can just all agree to. Well, they deny everything.
These are requests for admissions. They're basically statements that either the other side has to admit or deny.
Right. And an example, not in this context, just in general is, hey, if you got a breach of contract case, hey, admit this is the contract. You can skip stuff by doing it that way. So we sent admissions and they denied everything. So we go take the lady's deposition that caused the crash, and she, to her benefit, not really her benefit, I guess, but she was honest. She said, it's my fault. I caused the crash. I'm completely responsible for it. Well, I've spent all this time sending these admissions, trying to pare down these issues, and you say no, and then I got to go take all these depositions to prove all this up. So there is a piece of Texas law that says if you deny an admission and then the other side goes and proves it up through other discovery means, they can ask for their discovery expenses. It's a unique little thing. And we filed that motion, put it before Judge Smith. He wasn't familiar with it. I wasn't surprised because it's the first time in 15 years I ever filed that motion. And
I wasn't familiar with it. Well, I remember when you did it, I didn't remember it.
Yeah. And
nobody does it.
Nobody does it.
It's a very novel move.
The rule book's real big.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's stuck right in the middle. They don't tab it or anything.
Yeah. And fortunately, Judge Smith at the time of the hearing grasped onto it and awarded it. And we got our expenses for all that unnecessary discovery we had to do because they just wouldn't admit to stuff at the very beginning.
Which is a big deal.
Absolutely. It's a big deal.
I'll tell you why it's a big deal. What the public doesn't understand is the insurance lobbyists have trounced the trial lawyers lobbyists with the legislature, and the rules in Texas are you cannot, even though insurance pays, there's insurance coverage, auto insurance, you can't name the insurance company. I mean, unless it's a UIM claim, it's a third party. You have to go sue the guy. You have to go sue the responsible party. But really, it's the insurance company. It's the insurance company paying. It's the insurance company defending. It's all that type of stuff. And when they get sanctioned, basically is what it is. They have to pay, and they get really mad about that.
Yeah, they weren't real happy with me.
No, was not happy. I remember this.
I didn't really care.
Nope. Nope. So it goes on, and we get to mediation, and they're still at zero.
At mediation, they show up completely unprepared. And I don't say that lightly, but then the adjuster had no idea what the case was about, what we were doing, what was going on. And they offered us zero. I mean, no money. So it's an easy choice to go to trial at that point, right? I mean, you got nothing to lose. And Tony was one of my better clients, complete faith in us being the subject matter experts and trusting us in the process. And the other fun thing that happened was, and I use this example all the time when I talk to other clients. Facebook became a huge player in this deal. We requested the deposition of the responsible party, and she does the thing that I tell our clients all the time not to do. Do not go on Facebook and post stuff. And so the night before her deposition, I was just, I'm going to look her up, see if there's anything on Facebook. And dadgummit, she went on there the day that we requested her depo and said a whole bunch of nasty things about me and the clients and all. And then to top it off, she lied about it in her deposition. I produced it. They knew she made the Facebook post. What they didn't know was all the comments underneath. They didn't have time, or they didn't do their due diligence to go and research that post enough. And so I would ask the lady questions, and she would flat out lie to me, and I'd show her the next post or the next comment. And I'll never forget it, because I'm sitting across the table from her taking her deposition, and she goes, "Are you going to keep showing me that I said that stuff that I'm saying I'm not saying?" And I go, "Well, yeah, if you keep lying to me, I'm going to kind of have to." And so we had that whole dynamic. So now, it's a lot of fun. We're still got no money, no offer, no nothing. And Burress, as you know, you and I walked down for pretrial, and we filed a motion to strike their expert.
Yeah.
And it was a BRS expert.
BRC.
BRC.
Really good. It's one of the best defense groups, and they have experts on everything, including medicine, crash reconstruction, biomechanics, you name it. And this guy was medical doctor, biomechanic. Yep. He was a kinematics expert. He was everything.
He was overqualified. I mean, he practiced emergency medicine for a number of years. Then he got into biomed and all this other stuff.
He got his ass whipped, so he wasn't that good.
You couldn't draw up better qualifications. But what they had done was they wouldn't let us download the is it ECR?
Yeah.
ECM.
Yeah. And
CDR, SDM, ECM.
Black box. They wouldn't let us download it, and they held it over our head to get a trial continuance. Okay. I would not agree to that. So we go down for the hearing, and we go, he can't testify because we never got the raw data. We needed the data to be able to cross-examine him on what he's saying. And I'll never forget, I was passionately arguing that these lawyers have weaponized this information to try and, leverage a trial continuance, Judge. I mean, this is extortion, and I'm doing the best I can, right? And I'm trying not to giggle. And opposing counsel goes, "Yeah, that's exactly what we did." She's like, "I was trying to make a deal." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, don't admit it." And struck the expert.
Well, there was more to it. And you were busy doing something else, but they brought him from San Antonio. Totally surprised me.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
So I cross him in the hearing. And how long did he go? I felt like
we went for at least 45 minutes.
So y'all voted him right there.
Oh yeah, right there.
Oh, wow. Absolutely. And it went on and on.
And you'll remember this. One of the funny things was, as we're walking out the door to that hearing, I said, "I'm going to take the medical records." So I took all of Tony's medical records.
And I told Kyle,
in those folders.
He's never showing up live.
I wouldn't expect that at all.
And we asked him a question, and he goes, "It's not in the medical records." And I go, "Yeah, it is, and I can show you exactly where it is." And I walked those records over to him
because it was Liberty Mutual, and I just thought they're not going to pay to bring him up from San Antonio.
No, you wouldn't expect to.
So Judge Smith is running for re-election. He's very, very good, very qualified. He's been on the bench for 9 years. Very fair.
Very fair.
Smith,
very fair. He evaluated it. He thought about it for a couple minutes, and he said, "I'm striking. That's a big deal." And
he said he said this is a big deal, and I don't do this lightly, and I'm not doing this. I just feel like this is the decision I have to make based on what's in front of me.
That was the Friday before the Monday trial.
Correct.
And then business picked up.
My phone started ringing with offers. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And so we were able to get it resolved for Tony, which I just loved. He was a great, great client, good guy, professional, special needs child. And so we were able to get full value for his case.
Well, extra full value.
Yeah.
Because, he had a MRSA issue prior to the crash. So he had a history of infections. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
And to overcome that and get him extra full value was a big deal. What about you? You've settled a bunch lately.
Yeah, I've had a pretty good streak here lately. One of the things that Kyle said there that reminded me of one of my cases, something that happened there is something that we consistently do is we show up more prepared than the other side.
Yep.
And Kyle was talking about, I've got the medical records down so cold that when their expert says it's not in there, I go, "Oh, here it is." And that reminded me of a case that we had here recently. We've had several really good cases, but one that it was such a big turnaround. I actually ended up getting asked to talk about it at a webinar here recently that went out to the entire United States and 11 other countries. And it was a case where I am completely convinced that the defense did little to nothing in preparation of their star witness's deposition. So we've got on the face of it, super nice little old lady defendant. And I don't really like suing super nice little old lady defendants if I can help it. I prefer ugly middle-aged guys who look like they just got out of prison. But she's a grandma, super nice lady. But she ran our poor client, Pat, off the road. She was, by her own admission, and this is where the preparation thing comes in, I don't think she realized that her entire conversation with the police officers who investigated this crash was video and audio tapes. I don't believe her defense attorney, who had been hired by her insurance company, I don't believe he sat down with her and watched that video with her. I don't believe it for 1 second, because I would consistently ask her things in her deposition. Did you say thus and such to the police officer? And some of it was some fairly heinous stuff. At one point, she actually asked the cop if after running Pat off the road, she would have been better off if she would have just fled the scene. And so I get to ask her in her deposition, did you actually say to this police officer, would it have been better if I would have just left? Oh, I don't think I would have said something like that.
Which, let's just preface this, we're not allowed to give legal advice during this podcast, but the answer to that question is no, right?
Correct.
Just no, don't do that.
Don't do that. It happens to be a felony if you flee the scene of a crash that you caused that someone else got hurt in. So please do not commit a felony. At least not that one. And if you do commit a felony, don't call us. That's not the business that we're in. But that was a situation where I had watched that video at least a half a dozen times. I mean, no question at all, at least a half a dozen times. And it's not exactly like you're watching Fast and Furious. It's not that much fun, but we watched the video. We're looking for things. We're looking for admissions. We're looking for her, basically fessing up, which she kind of did to the cop. But by the time she gets her deposition, she's not real keen on giving up liability. So we had an absolute blast with this lady. And she starts off by seeming like everybody's grandma, but by the end, Pat, our client, put it best. He goes, she seems like the nicest lady in the world, but after you got done with her, I swear she was fairy godmother from Shrek 2. And I thought that it was I was like, you know what? You're right. She comes across as just almost pure evil by the end of it. And it starts off with just a death of 1,000 cuts. For instance, to my great surprise, I asked her a question which I did not expect to get anything juicy off of. Say, hey, you got any dogs or cats or any animals in that truck while you were driving, or that Jeep? Because I knew she did, because I'd seen it in the video. I had 3 dogs and 4 cats. They're all in cages. It's like, well, that's a lot of animals. You sure you weren't distracted by the dogs? Because our theory of the case is that she was distracted by something in her vehicle, is looking down, and when she looks back up, she has crossed the center line, bearing down on our client, coming the opposite direction on this farm to market road. They're both going 55 miles per hour. He pulls to his right to avoid the head-on collision, ends up flipping his vehicle 3 times.
So it's like a real life version of the chicken scene in Footloose.
It's exactly that. Yes. And
I used to live up there. So that road, Coit, I believe.
Yeah.
It's like a bar ditch on both sides. So, if you're forced to exit the roadway, bad things are going to happen.
And then they did. He went off the road to the right, and just before he hit a ramp, basically a bar ditch ramp, he got back on the road. But when he did that, he caught 2 of the tires with more friction than the other 2 and rolled 3 times, according to several witnesses.
Totally not his fault, though.
No, but here's the amazing thing. Despite it being very obvious to the police officer who interviewed the defendant driver at the scene, and obvious to basically anybody who would look at this that had the sense that God gave geese, she, for insurance defense reasons, and I can only say for insurance defense reasons, deny, delay,
right.
defend, right? In that mindset, she just went in there and she obstinately refused to accept any responsibility at all. And she was not aware of all the things that I was aware that she had said to the police officer on the day of. So we had kind of a double whammy. We sent it out and had it transcribed by a professional. And so I had it word for word, what the cop said, what she said, and we had the video. And by the time we actually took her deposition, we had attempted to take it 3 times. She couldn't figure out the Zoom technology on her end. So I prepared for this thing multiple times. I had every section of her video that was bad for her and good for us written down, what was said to the second. And so whenever I was asking her these, to her, seemingly innocent questions about, did you say this, that, and the other? Oh, no, I would never say such a thing. Oh, really? Well, let's listen to it. And so we would get to hear it. And it was one of those things that you don't think you're ever going to get in real life. It only happens in the movies, where they deny what you just all heard. And she would say things like in the video, I would ask her, well, did you admit to the cop that you were looking away from the road and that you looked up at the last second? Oh, no, I would never have looked away. Okay. And then we'd play it. I'm not sure what I was doing, but I looked up and that's when I saw him. Did you ever say that you were past the center line? Oh, no, I would never have said something like that. Then we'd hit the tape. Well, actually, when I looked up, my left tires were over the center. And it was just a series of these things that any one of them probably wouldn't be that big a deal. Just like the dogs. Why do I have so many dogs? Well, because I'm such a good person. I'm going up to PetSmart to an adoption event. Mm-hmm. Nobody adopted these dogs and cats, so I'm bringing them all back home. Are you certain, ma'am? Are you sure that they were in cages? Oh, absolutely. They were in cages. Okay. Because you realize the same video I've been showing you you're telling the cop all of these things that you don't remember when I ask you also shows these dogs running around. Oh, no, absolutely not. Well, of course, at the end of the video, we find a great shot of one of the pooches up there just looking through the window and just cute as he could possibly be over her shoulder while she's talking to the cop. So it got to a point where by the end of it, I lost count, but we were well into the double digits of things that she would deny having said. And then we would have the hard evidence that she had said it. And it became very clear to me that she was not aware of these things. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so stupid as to deny something that is on tape. So long story short, that case, we had a denial pre-lit, a zero offer. We filed suit, still zero offer, went through written discovery, zero offer, deposed our client, deposed the owner of the vehicle, still zero offer. After we take her deposition, their initial offer at mediation the following week was $125,000 when they'd never offered anything at all. And we ended up resolving it for $200,000, which was a very substantial reward relative to the damages in the case. So, and we had it told to us on very good authority that the reason for the turnaround was that deposition. And it was because we spent 10 times or maybe 20 times the amount of time getting prepared for it that they did.
Yeah. And that came from their own counsel.
Correct.
That was an important case for our firm, because anytime a good buddy, refers a good friend of his to us, and in that case it was Bob, who we've represented too. That's a big deal, and to win a case like that, and win it on the details. And I think the whole point is these are not isolated incidents. I mean, if they're not denying liability totally, the insurance companies are depressing the settlement offers. They are. I always tell people, if you don't use us, I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you don't use us, use legal counsel, because you will come out so much better in the end. Not only can they help you get fair value on the front side, but then they can help you negotiate down your medical expenses and do a whole bunch of other stuff. Really, they can allow you to focus on recovery while they handle the legal stuff. And I think that's such a big deal.
It's absolutely huge. And I've told people that at the end of a conversation where we're discussing whether we want to be their lawyer, whether they want us to be, to be our client. And I will straight up tell them, look, if for whatever reason you don't like what we have to say, please go talk to somebody down the street that also has a law license from the state of Texas, because if you don't, you're going to go and you're just going to find yourself at such a disadvantage, because the people on the other side of this thing, just like we, do it all day, every day against the smartest people in the world who are trying to do things to thwart what our efforts are. If you get out of your field of expertise, you may be the best plumber, the best HVAC guy, the best computer programmer, whatever it is you do, you may be the absolute best at it. But when you get on the phone talking to a professional adjuster who adjusts claims all day, every day, and you're not equally a professional, you're just at a huge disadvantage. It's like going and wrestling with somebody. Right. Just, we're the same size and you were in the Olympics. That's how much advantage could it be? A lot.
Well, and to kind of piggyback on that, how many times have one of us at this table had a conversation with an adjuster who's a professional who's done this for 20 years, and they're telling us the exact opposite of what the law is? And constantly. If you're a lay person trying to handle your own claim, you're going to spend hours on trying to figure out if what they're telling you is even the truth. So it is insane to me that people try and do this on their own. But
they don't know,
they don't.
I was hurt when I was in high school, and really hurt, real bad crash, lost a season of golf, and it would never even have dawned on my parents to get me professional help. And as a result, we got zero. And I still have to live with the damage that was done.
I think that there is a false narrative, a meme, if you will, that good people don't sue. And if you are the type of person that's looking for an opportunity to sue, you must be a bad person inherently. And the insurance companies take advantage of good people who feel that way. My parents are the same way. My dad fell and he tore his quadricep completely off the bone. It was such a bad fall. And it was all I could do to get him to file a suit. And then he goes through the deposition process, and you would think that he had been held by the Nazis and tortured for evidence. And unfortunately, part of it was he doesn't like the confrontation, but part of it was he doesn't think that's something that a good person does. And I cannot disabuse people of that notion fast enough or hard enough or often enough. It's a good thing to stand up for your rights. There's nothing noble about letting a big insurance company run over you. I talk to folks, fortunately not as often as I used to, but I spent a lot of years down in Dallas having frustrating conversations with folks to where I would say, look, I get that you don't want your premiums to go up. I get that you're living on a certain amount of money. But the reality is, if you bought uninsured motorist coverage for the last 20 years from this company and you refuse to put the claim in for fear that your rates are going to go up, every penny that you spent for the last 20 years, you might as well set on fire because you're not taking advantage of the benefit that you bargained for. So it's not a matter of, only, not so good people do this. No, good people stand up for their rights. Good people get the benefit of their bargain, and you've bought this coverage. You're living in a society where we require this coverage. Take advantage of it whenever the situation comes along. Don't give the billionaire companies a break beyond the breaks that they are purchasing down in Austin already.
Yeah, who's building the 30-story buildings?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the insurance companies. What other cases we want to talk about?
Well, you've got one that was pretty interesting. Why don't you tell us about that one?
Ellie's case.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we just settled that one. Anytime there's a 7-figure result, I think we probably should talk about it. I mentioned this before, a couple podcasts before, but if it's somebody that I know or somebody, that I know sends a family member, I feel pressure.
Sure.
And this was a really good girlfriend of mine who worked at Starbucks. It was her sister, and when this happened, they came right to me. And that's 2 cases that you've pulled out of that Starbucks, by the way. We've actually gotten a lot more than that. We've gotten like 10 cases from Starbucks, but I've spent a fair amount of time there too. But the older I've gotten, the more pressure I feel when was it the Starbucks off El Dorado or the Starbucks by the office? This one was Adriatica. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, at least 2, I think 3 from there. Yeah. But anyway, this one was dangerous. And I know y'all have had cases, you've defended them, you've handled them on the plaintiff side, but this was one of those deals where there's bad weather. It's on 121, there's ice, and the responsible party is driving an old pickup. He says it didn't have electronic stability control. I really think it did. He said it didn't, and I went with that. But he's driving too fast for the conditions with that vehicle. He's in the right lane, and what does he do? He hits a patch of ice on a bridge. He starts a counterclockwise spin, and he goes across 3 lanes, and he hits our clients in a Tahoe, which you would think, well, it's kind of a side swipe. It's not that big a deal. But what happens is our client, who is stunningly gorgeous, she's 20, 21 years old. She would be a model were she not 5 feet tall. And her face, because of the impact to the passenger side, her face hits the inside of the glass. She's in the back seat of a Tahoe. And poor Ellie, she hit it hard, and she ended up breaking several bones in her face. They ended up having to do surgery. Now, medical expenses were not that high. They were about $80,000, of which we were able to negotiate substantially. But she still has a little bit of a scar. Is it hard to see? It's a little bit hard to see. But she also had a whole bunch of months that there was a bigger scar. And on top of the scar, it's not symmetrical. There's a little more than a scar there. There's a little bit more where if she smiles, you can see just a little bit of, and if it was someone who's 50 or 60, or if it was a guy, it'd be one thing. But for, a young female, that's pretty darn important. Yeah. And you still got to look for it, but once you see it, it's there. Yeah. And we accentuated it, as best we could. What do they do? And this is State Farm. This is one of your better insurance companies. Denial liability. Well, because he's on ice, because he spins on ice, what is it?
Back to God.
Sudden emergency.
Sudden emergency, unavoidable accident. he's not responsible for this. This is a pilot. This is, and so it's that type of thing. But he can't just use ICE as an excuse. He has to then pile on. And so he tells the officer, there was a vehicle coming in the middle lane between my vehicle and Ellie's, and it passed me at a very high rate of speed, and there was a drift. And that's what caused my vehicle to get that, right? Along with ICE. And so then we take his deposition, and he is so cocksure of himself.
He's a pilot.
Yeah, he's a pilot. And it's not one vehicle. Now it grows to 2 vehicles. Then we start getting into the details, and I don't think he expected it. And he can't talk about what kind of vehicle it was. He can't talk about either whether it was a sedan, is it an SUV, is it a truck. I mean, isn't that amazing that it's so distracting?
Those are tough details.
Yeah, and he can't talk about how fast they were going, how fast he was going, although he was obviously going very, very, very slow. And we have a whole bunch of hearings in that case, and it's the same counsel that you had in Pat's case.
Oh yeah.
And they lose they're in McKinney, and they lose every single hearing. I'm just going to tell you, I don't like the lawyer in the case. I mean, I don't care if he sees it or not. I don't like him. I like the lawyer handling your case. I like the other lawyer. I don't like, because this lawyer thinks he's the best in the world. Just ask him if you don't believe him, right? It's that type of guy. And they lose every single hearing. And they call me, they're like, we just cannot believe that this hearing went the way it did. We seriously questioned this judge. And I'm like, okay, what do you want to do about it? And so then I'm like, so I've got this theory now. If they listen, they're gonna see this, but I don't think it really matters. The guy was a pilot. I think he had issues with sleep. I really do.
Oh, okay.
I think he had issues with sleep. I think they slept in separate bedrooms. I think that we were about to find out that he had a bad night of sleep, and we were going to be able to really create that. I think he got tired, and I think he may have fallen asleep early that morning.
That would make sense.
And
see, that's not my theory on it.
Well, it's my theory.
My theory is he doesn't have a whole lot of common sense.
Well,
and when you're driving a truck on ice, that back end's a lot lighter than that front end.
That's right.
And he lost control.
That's right. But I wanted to get, there's a whole bunch of pilots who have issues. They have snoring problems, and there's just, sleep apnea is a very real thing. And so I go try to take the wife's deposition, and the defense lawyers in our case at all times pretend as if they are counsel for the wife as well as the husband, which makes sense to me. And if at any time they would have told me, hey, we don't represent her, you're going to need to subpoena her, you're going to need to call her yourself. They never do that. They, we'll get you dates in writing. We'll get you dates. We'll do this. We'll do that. And then it's, hey, she's got a little bit of a health issue. Can we just wait and do her depo after the mediation? I'm like, well, I mean, considering I haven't gotten a first date from you, then, are you going to be able to get dates? Well, we'll be able to get dates and this and that. And so anyway, we end up noticing her deposition. They don't quash it. And we get to the point in time that we're going to take her depo. And I've got all these questions that I don't think they're looking for. She doesn't show up. And the defense counsel's kind of gleeful about it. Kind of made me mad. And so then we file a motion to compel the deposition. And essentially what they say at the last second, on the last day of discovery, on the last hour of discovery, they say, we don't represent her. We never said we represented her. And you should have subpoenaed her. You should have called her directly when they've done all these things to suggest that they were in control. So we filed a motion to compel, right? It was a motion to compel.
It was a motion to compel.
And anyway, the judge takes it on submission and sends a ruling. And her ruling, it's just vicious. She says, defense counsel, you misled plaintiff's counsel. You misled plaintiff's counsel. And we are going to extend the discovery period. And all plaintiff's counsel's got to do is issue a subpoena, and she will show up for this deposition. And $1.2 million later, there's no deposition.
Didn't need that deposition.
Didn't need that deposition. And again, I think it's so important to be able to get full value for clients. And they're not used to fighting the way we fight. I mean, there's other good lawyers out there.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying we're the only one. But to fight on every single issue. And I'm not saying don't be agreeable when you can be agreeable, but I'm saying what we have to do is represent our client's best interest. And you have to be willing to fight on every single issue, win, lose, or draw. And when they know that, I think it really matters.
No, I absolutely know it does. I mean, back in my defense days, it would make a difference who the plaintiff's lawyer was. If it was somebody they knew was just smoke and mirrors and they'd roll over and take whatever the offer was, they would get a certain amount of money. And if it was somebody that they knew good and well is going to go to court and do a good job, they just got a different level of respect. And so I've seen it from both sides, and I hear it from people. You know, we hear it from mediators, we hear it from adjusters. I mean, we hear it all the time. Hear it from defense attorneys. You know, they know whenever they see our signature block come through and any one of us has signed it, that they're in for a fight, and it absolutely makes a difference in the way they treat our clients.
And we're really trying to do everything we can to change the playing field in Collin County. I mean, for those who don't know in the public, Collin County has a long history of being an enormously conservative venue. And look, I'm a conservative. That's great. I mean, but that doesn't mean that you don't want to get justice. And it can't, you can't just deny someone justice who is a victim. And there's a mentality, and the insurance companies feel like if you've got a case in Collin County, they're not scared of it at all.
Yep.
Because they feel like all these jurors are tort reformed. And we have been on the front lines and of trying to change that. And it's not just the jurors. Gosh, it's the judges, man. I mean, we've got a couple judges up here who, I mean, I'm going to tell you, they're horrible. They're absolutely horrible for us. But there are some who are really, really good for us now. And I feel like we're getting some judges, especially female judges, who really care and want us to have a fair opportunity.
Yeah, I feel that same way. If you've got a good solid case, you're fine up here. The insurance companies and the insurance adjusters, they drink the Kool-Aid and they get to deciding, well, every case is a 6 weeks of chiropractic treatment, bumper tap at a red light. And they see so many of those that it colors the way they look at the legitimate cases, to where there is a lot of value and there is some scary damages. And they just flat out miss a lot of times because of it.
Agree. Anything else on you boys' minds?
COVID. We're all living with that.
Golly. No trials in 6 or 5 months.
At least.
Yeah, whatever it's been.
We're on what, 22nd order from special order from the Supreme Court or whatever, emergency order, I should say.
I think I've had one live hearing in the last 6 months. Everything else has been Zoom. And
I've had one, and I was so dadgum happy to be there. I almost kissed Judge Wilson.
I was the same way. I was like, thank you for giving me a chance to put on a tie.
Well, at least my prediction didn't come true, because I thought we'd be applying at Home Depot.
I know. We were a little worried when this first started. Fortunately, hadn't come to that.
And I hope we get back. I hope we get back in October, November, and can get. I really feel like there's, federal court's been rocking and rolling. They put the measures in place, make sure everybody's safe. I think the biggest deal is your voir dire panel, because if you've got 50 or 60 people from which you're picking, you've got to be able to spread them out. But we have that central jury room in Collin County.
It's huge.
It's huge. I mean, we ought to absolutely be able to do it. And, but we don't make the rules.
But, despite all the limitations, we're still able to rock and roll. I mean, we're just doing everything by Zoom.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Everything but trials.
And we're having hearings by Zoom. We're taking depositions by Zoom. We're meeting with clients by Zoom. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure I'm dating my wife by Zoom at this point.
Burress Law Life and Friends, we've had a ball today. Thank you for joining us for episode 4, and we'll see you next time.